Hello and welcome, or maybe even welcome back to my YouTube channel Lapping Analytics. Have you ever wondered for your job or perhaps a hobby how much practice is needed to become good at what you do? Do you have examples in your personal or professional network of people who inspire you because they excel at something they do? Or are you rather surrounded by people who say they have a lot of experience and have nothing more to learn or improve? Well, my name is Jimmy Lapping. I'm a psychologist and statistician with an interest in a variety of topics, including learning and expertise. And in this video, I dive into this topic of experience and practice. And I'm going to introduce this topic with the example of learning a new language. To get started with a new language, it is a good idea to create a very initial base of a few important words and some very basic grammar. Really basic. This base will help you to start to understand basic written messages, and you can start practicing with some writing, basic writing as well. And of course, learning is learning a language is not just about reading and writing, it's also about listening and starting to speak. Now, for that very simple base to get started, we need some documentation with some very basic vocabulary and grammar, which for increasing numbers of languages can easily be found online. There is no need to look for complex stuff just yet, because complex matter will only stick once you have practiced with the basics. And regarding that practice, for reading and writing, apart from newspapers and other easily accessible text, we are fortunate these days to use WhatsApp, Telegram, and applications alike. And of course, we also need to practice our listening skills. Even if we do not yet have people in our network who have the patience to practice with us in that new language, we can practice our listening skills by watching news fragments in that language on YouTube. For instance, I personally use Euronews in a variety of languages. Euronews presents the news in a variety of languages and in fragments of, well, typically about 10 minutes. So I first listen in one of the languages that I use every day for my work, which are Dutch, German, English, and Spanish. And then next I watch the news from that channel, Euronews, in French, Italian, Romanian, and or Russian, depending on how much time I have, because these are languages that I do not currently use on a regular basis, but do not want to lose either. And finally, of course, it is important to look for people to talk to. Recognition tends to be easier than production, and a language that we do not practice will get lost, at least in part, and will get lost more so the more time passes. Now, my line of thoughts that I just shared regarding learning a new language also applies to getting started in other domains, such as healthcare, human resources, sports, science, education, and sales. What all these and other domains have in common is that whatever is not used will get lost over time. And although experience is important, one of the problems with experience is that not all our experience is equally useful. For example, there are people who have been lifting weights for years and at some point start to suffer from back pain because the lifting technique they used was not appropriate, and they never took any training or feedback from others in order to adopt a better technique. And whether we talk about healthcare, sports, science, or education, to name a few domains, much of the work is done in teams. Even in more individual sports like boxing or karate, team training is vital. You cannot become or remain a champion just by practicing alone. Training is vital and it must be done in a timely manner. And since the goal of training is to get better at something, it is important to monitor and evaluate progress prior, during, and after training. And when I say training, I am not referring to single isolated events, but to training periods, as is so common in, for example, sports. Without extensive long-term training, no athlete could become a champion. And since much of the work healthcare professionals or people in other professions do is done in teams, it is important to engage in individual and team practice. Now, let us just pause here for a moment and look at a few examples. Just this morning, while in a meeting, I got called by a company that is trying to sell solar panels. And while the topic of solar panels interests me, I was in a meeting and was expecting a more important call from someone. So when the phone rang, I did not check the number and just picked up thinking it was that important call. Now, the person on the other side started to bombard me with information, not giving me any space to talk until after 30 seconds or so, and then told me I should stay on the line for 2 minutes more to listen to what they had to say. I responded that I was in a meeting and had only picked up because I expected an important call from someone, so I requested to be called back later. Well, the person on the other side rudely interrupted me, insisting quite aggressively that I should stay on the phone to listen for 2 more minutes, which is where I repeated that I had to go. Clearly, if this person has had any training thus far, it seems that the training has not been useful. But another likely scenario is that this person has not had any training at all, or perhaps some very isolated one-off activity at the start of the job, and team members of this person do not really provide feedback on the performance in past calls. And as a result, this person will probably not get many people interested in listening to yet another story about solar panels. Most people will just hang up. Then, in education, in several countries where I have worked, a fairly common attitude, especially among middle-aged and older teachers that I encountered, was the attitude of, I have been doing this for more than 15 years and any further training is a waste of time. Problem is that society changes and the educational needs these days are not the same as 15 or 20 years ago. And besides, unfortunately, many ideas about education from the olden days have been debunked as urban legends, yet continue to be used by people who refuse to seriously engage in any kind of training. And in hospital settings, both a lack of technical skills and a lack of communication skills can have disastrous consequences for people's health or even lives. Even if you have experience, technology advances, and it is important to engage in ongoing training to keep up to date about new developments and, at very least, maintain your level in the techniques and skills you once learned. And given that the majority of critical errors in hospital settings are a consequence of a lack of communication, leadership and/or coordination, it is absolutely crucial to also engage in regular team practice. That is, teams who work together must also practice together. Teams who work together must also train together. Now, if you want to know about training in healthcare, language, education, a few other domains, and you're new to my channel, check it out because you will find more videos on this content, also related topics in English, in Spanish, as well as in a variety of other languages. But having said that, I would like to round off this video with some absolutely brilliant comparisons made by a company that, in my view, is one of the world's leading companies in sales training. The company that I'm talking about is called Technocell. You can find their website here, and when you visit their website, you will find, among others, a very nice comparison between sales training and professional boxing. In boxing, as well as in other sports, Champions are not made by reading books, watching PowerPoints, doing some e-learning modules, or having someone explain how to move, how to position yourself, how to breathe, etc. Now, don't get me wrong. As a fan and practitioner of martial arts myself, I view all these activities that I just mentioned as potentially useful, in combination with practice. Yes, it is important to know how to position your feet, how to use your hips, how to breathe, how to punch, how to block, and many more things. But all of that theoretical activity has no use without practice. And it's the same in sales training. Yes, e-learning modules may serve the function that that initial base in learning a new language has, or understanding basic footwork or blocking in boxing in order to, practice successfully. But if you think that you can just do some e-learnings, then deal with clients and just learn by experience, in my view, you are mistaken. While experience is useful, experience without proper feedback is limited because we become blind to the things we are doing but that are not contributing to our success. Just like the example I gave a few minutes in the conversation about solar panels. Now, a great advantage of training is that we can practice our areas of improvement without making mistakes with real clients, or in hospital settings, that would be with real patients. Just like in boxing training, training can help you block better and reduce the chance of being knocked out in a real match with a real opponent. Now, for this and other inspiring comparisons, you can find Technocell among others on YouTube and on LinkedIn. And if you do not like boxing, well, in that case, from Technocell's LinkedIn page, I would like to draw your attention to two very nice short videos in which sales training is compared to two different types of arts. In the first video, Technocell's CEO Christian Rosval talks with a member of Melodic, one of the leading pagan Black Death metal bands in Eastern Europe, and asks him how and how often he practices. Well, in short, this guy practices every day, and once a week also with a vocal coach. This is then contrasted in the conversation with a global tendency in the sales business where people practice on average about 30 minutes a year, and that practice is often, at least in large part, theoretical. And in a second video, the same kind of comparison is made in a conversation with one of the leading pantomime artists in France, and the conclusion comes down to the same. Although experience matters, repeated and deliberate practice makes champions. And on that note, this video is coming to an end. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you want to stay tuned for more content in English or in some other language, hit the subscribe button and you will get notified whenever a new video appears. And for now, thank you for your time, have a great day, and I hope to see you soon.